Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to take a deep dive look into the new documentary Willow Behind the Magic. Now, before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. And finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store in order to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Force Ghost Conversations, and this is going to be a really special one, folks. I can already tell you, because this Willow Behind the Magic documentary is just spectacular. I mean, we're going to go all into every aspect of it, but I'm just forewarning you, I loved it. So get ready for that on the other side of our news segment here, which is affectionately dubbed Cloud City Gossip. Now, to start, Star Wars Celebration is just around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the festivities in London will take place starting on April 7th and going through April 10th. Now, some single-day tickets are still available now if you want to attend the convention. So be sure to hop on that before they sell out in entirety. And from my experience, Celebration is the place to be. So if you can and are able, buy the ticket, go for it, and have a lot of fun. You won't regret it, trust me. In addition, the first wave of guests have also been announced for the convention. So typically people that you'd be able to meet on the show floor, whether that be via an autograph booth or with a picture that you can purchase, that you get to take a picture with them. So these include Anthony Daniels, Ashley Eckstein, Matt Lanter, D. Bradley Baker, Giancarlo Esposito, Vivian Lyra Blair, and Indira Varma. So that's a great list of guests already, and it's only the first wave, folks. You can rest assured there'll be a lot more coming down the pipeline. So we will keep you updated as well on Force Ghost Conversations and future episodes as we hear new information about guests, panels, all that fun stuff that's coming to Star Wars Celebration. Now, our next bit of news here, the purpose of today's episode, as you all know by this point, is talking about Willow Behind the Magic. But it also premiered this week on Disney Plus. And spoiler alert, everybody, I've already talked about its praises already, but I think it's great. So be sure to watch it now. Pause this episode, go watch it now, and then come back to this episode so you can experience all of its delight without spoilers. I think that's going to be really important. So just go do that, and then come back to this episode at this point in time. Again, you've been forewarned for our discussion later on. Lastly, this is just a bit of Force Ghost Conversations news here for you all. If you've been connected to our social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff, I'm sure you've seen by now our brand new logo that we'll be using for our Indiana Jones inspired content that'll be coming before we even know it, because Dial of Destiny is coming out in June, and we'll, of course, we'll do a lot of lead up episodes in order to get ready for that wondrous occasion. And you can see our new logo, or our podcast artwork is a more properly used phrase there, on our social media channels. I think it's really spectacular. It incorporates the Indiana Jones font and color scheme into the mix. And I'm really thrilled with what my artwork guy has been able to put together for that one. So if you're a big fan of what we do here and you're not connected to our social media channels, do so. And go ahead and interact with that, with those posts about the new logo design. love to hear your thoughts about it. And honestly, if you really are a big fan of it, rest assured, our T Public store also has that item on available for purchase. So if you want to support the show, go to our T Public page. The link is in the show notes for this episode. You can also just go to T Public and search for Force Ghost Conversations. And you'll find us there, and you'll be able to get literally anything that they have available on T Public has our Indiana Jones inspired artwork on that on the site. So if you want a T-shirt, a hoodie, a onesie for your newborn, a phone case, all that's ready and on display for your purchase now. And of course, those proceeds go to supporting the show and helping us to grow the proverbial fan base that we have here at Force Ghost Conversations. You can also, on that same platform, check out our Willow inspired artwork and, of course, our standard Star Wars inspired artwork that is our typical um, podcast artwork that we have for most of our episodes here. So this is all exciting stuff, and I'm so thrilled with how it came out. So be sure to go check that out, and thank you as well for your support already for the podcast. Just by listening, it really just is a big burst of joy to my heart. And the fact that we've been able to foster this community for we're getting pretty darn close to 100 episodes, which is amazing when you think about it. That we've made it thus far and have continued to create episodes weekly, sometimes multiple times a week, depending on what's going on, which has just been a lot of fun. And I love getting in front of the microphone and chatting with you all and having various guests on our show too. It's been a lot of fun and something that I can hope to continue doing as we go into the next phase of Force Ghost Conversations. And thanks again for all your support. I really appreciate it. So with that, folks, that is all of the news that I had compiled for this week's episode. On the other side of this very short break, we will be back with our discussion all about the documentary Willow Behind the Magic. Stay tuned, folks. Okay, everyone, I've teased it enough, but it is time to literally get back into the conversation of Willow. And it has been far too long, frankly, if you ask me. Like, I got so used to talking about Willow, chatting about all the fun themes and characters and story beats each and every week as we went through the 8 episodes. And even prior to when we talked about the trailers, we discussed the movie itself. We did a lead up to all things Willow, talking about the main titular character himself, Willow Ofgood. And I'm not ready to walk away from that world just yet. I know there hasn't been an announcement of a season 2 and beyond yet. Maybe wink wink Star Wars Celebration is a place to do something like that. But we were gifted, frankly, with this incredible documentary, Willow Behind the Magic. It premiered on Disney Plus this past Wednesday, January 25th. It was incredible. I'm not even sugarcoating it or speaking in hyperbole. At least for me, I think it might be up there with some of the best documentary work that I've ever watched. And maybe it didn't for you, but I just loved its unique approach to having a documentary being done. Maybe you're a fan of what they've been doing on Disney Plus for the Marvel content too, that assembled series where they've been releasing a documentary usually a week or two after a show has concluded on, or a movie is, whenever the movie is done with its theatrical run or comes on Disney Plus. They've been doing these behind the scenes documentaries, and one of my favorite one of those is certainly the Werewolf by Night documentary, just because of its unique tone and voice that it has brought to the artwork that is documentary style filmmaking. And frankly, Lucasfilm did a similar approach for Willow Behind the Magic, and it really worked for me. It's just so spectacular. So strap in, folks. You're definitely coming along for an awesome, fun, and exciting ride as we're going to literally go through each and every part of this documentary and breaking it all down. I just can't wait. So I hope that you have seen the documentary. I know I've prefaced it a few times in this episode already that we're going to be talking about it. So You've been forewarned, spoiler wise. Everything is fair game, and frankly, if you haven't watched all of Willow the series yet, then I don't know what to do for you at this point. Go watch all 8 episodes because you're going to be a little bit out of sorts when it comes to what's going on in this documentary, and frankly, what I'm talking about here. It's going to blow over your heads. You're going to have no idea what I'm talking about. So, what are you doing? Go watch it. It's spectacular, phenomenal. You know the drill. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, anyways, Willow behind the magic, folks, and I just love that we're back again in this world. Again, I didn't want to leave. I did not want to leave when that episode 8 concluded, and our heroes were walking away from the immemorial city, and then we're left with that big cliffhanger and the books being put on back on the shelves. Like, I'm not ready to just be done with Willow. I need more of these characters. They've become such a pivotal part of my life and the conversations I've been having lately. So I'm really thankful for that overall, and the fact that this documentary, I wasn't expecting it at all. It was frankly just announced last Wednesday. The Wednesday before it came out, the following Wednesday. Yeah, that's special that we got to spend even just for the little half hour that this episode was. It's more time with the actors and just hearing more about the thought process for the world. I'm a big fan of that, and I'm glad that we got this. It's very similar akin to the Disney Gallery series they did for the Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, and similarly to the documentary A Jedi's Return that was done for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And hopefully they do something similar for Andor. I would really geek out at the chance for something like that to come out, but time will tell. But it was great again to hear that amazing theme, ladies and gentlemen, that classic Willow adventure theme that comes up at various points within the series and is, of course, really prevalent in the Willow original movie from 1988. I was a big fan, frankly, that the documentary started off with showing some of that old footage from the Willow set in 1987. I mean, come on now. More Ron Howard in a Star Tours hat. Immediately looked right at Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations herself, Elise King, and I said, where can I get that hat? I was looking on eBay, Etsy, all that. I want to get that hat, and trust me, I will make it my mission somehow to procure that hat, and I will be wearing it. I will wear it, and I'll tell you all that I'm wearing it because this isn't a video podcast. But guess what, folks? It's coming one way or another. It was so fun again seeing a young Warwick Davis taking on the titular character and just hearing him talk about the joy of being Willow when he was just 16 or so, working on that, and his experiences working with George Lucas again, previously working on Return of the Jedi and the Ewok Adventures and Labyrinth, of course. And now he's got this story where he is the front and center main character. Just inspiring. And how cool is it seeing a younger George Lucas, not the youngest George Lucas, but a young George Lucas nonetheless, on set with castles all around him. I mean, what are we doing, folks? This is great. As a fan of both Tolkien lore and Lord of the Rings, just a lot of fun for me overall to see this guy, this hero of my own life, and this person that I've really admired all the way through. Just a big fan of all that, and love seeing this stuff. I mean, frankly, I think what's missing here in our lives is the fact that I need a full documentary about the making of Willow, the original film in 1988. I need that in my life right now, and I will. If you know something that exists that I'm not aware of to this point, please let me know on our social media channels so I can track it down. A big fan of all that stuff. Love seeing the interview with Pat Roach, aka General Kale, and his experience working with Lucasfilm over the years, and particularly with the Indiana Jones franchise. And Ruby Cruz really hits it right on the point at the beginning of this episode when she talks about the Willow film itself, and it's something that we've really gotten to the heart of here on Force Ghost Conversations over the last couple of weeks in discussing the Willow series, but particularly when we talked about the original film and, of course, our lead-up episode where we talked about Willow of Good as a character. But overall, the original film really believes in itself, yet it doesn't take itself too seriously, which is a perfect approach, tone, and just overall ideology for the film in general, which I full-heartedly believe that they continued in the series, Willow, the series. So spot on with that, Ruby Cruz. Exactly right. So I something that I found interesting from the start here was that Ron Howard said that George always wanted to develop Willow further on television as opposed to a movie, which I would have found fascinating given what they were doing at the time, which makes a little sense when you think about it, right? This post Willow world, what is the next thing that George really works on? Is that Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which was adapted and created for television and premiered on ABC. So that's really where his head is in his episodic television stories. So maybe that's the case. I mean, I would love to really get George's thoughts on that specifically, if that really was the case, if that wasn't the case, right? I'm always fascinated with the idea of what would be the Willow sequel, which of course we got. But if like let's say Willow was the most successful movie of all time, it broke box office records, has this big cultural pop culture impact. What would that sequel have been in 1991, 92, etc.? What would that have looked like? I don't know. But it would have been a fascinating endeavor for sure. And if it would have been on television, great. If it would have been a movie, also cool too. I don't know. But it makes sense that they're doing this now on Disney Plus and utilizing the full aspects of the streaming service in order to tell the story for, frankly, a little bit of a cult classic film 35 years later. And we certainly reap the benefit as fans of the original and new fans as well. And I definitely think that John Kasdan was the right person to captivate the magic of the original, but through his writing and bringing in other writers and directors and creative minds to this story, was able to push the high fantasy genre in new and exciting directions. I think that is certainly at the forefront of this documentary. It's amazing to me that Willow, this almost the third child of the Lucasfilm triangle, if you will, went up against heavy hitters of the high fantasy genre this year. You're talking Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien inspired world, and George R.R. Martin, the Game of Thrones universe. And Willow stood up to both of those big giants and said, "I'm here. I'm here to rock," which is great. I loved, the aspects of all three of those series, but Willow really stood out to me this year by being fresh, innovative, and set its own pace amongst all of those. Now, I think that I believe it was Debs Peterson. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but she talked really extensively earlier on in the documentary about the cast overall, and she said this thing either lives or dies according to the cast, which I believe is 100% correct. Which was one of my main highlights right from the first episode. It was the cast. They just seemed to have the absolute best time. And frankly, watching the documentary, that's what I saw on display there. Them geeking out, having fun, becoming friends on set together, even though they'd never interacted with each other prior to being in this production together. It certainly translates to the big screen too. There's no denying that. They were, I would argue, really exceptionally well cast. So take that, everybody. I was a big fan too of the running gag throughout the episode. And that's really where this comes to play here, where I talked earlier on about why this documentary really sticks for me. Because it's also doing that, where it, like Ruby Cruz said before, believes in itself, yet doesn't take itself too seriously. How many documentaries do you watch about movies or any other documentary where they're just so tedious? Maybe not necessarily boring, but to a degree boring, where they just go step by step through the process. There really isn't any thought to it overall about how they are bringing something different or unique or special to the genre of making a documentary. But they literally took the tone and vibe of the Willow series and moved it right into this documentary, making it very seamless between the two. For example, look at you've seen it already, but think about the jabs that they were making at Warwick Davis, making him seem like this prima donna on set and someone who is difficult to work with, etc., which you can tell was such a joke that couldn't be further from the truth. It made for a unique and fun documentary viewing experience for me that was in line again with the humor of the show. Like, look at that, especially that part where he was like he's saying he invented the colon, which I loved his little like the British accent of it all, make it instead of saying colon like we would say in the American dialect. He's the colon. And if you didn't know, and then um, his beef with Christian Slater was also hysterical to me. Like that's a little unfounded, but like it just made sense with how the documentary works overall. I love that joke that he threw in there where he's like, if you add him to the show, it won't be Disney Plus anymore. It'll be Disney minus. Yeah. That's hysterical. That, it works. Come on now. One of the big takeaways I had from this documentary too was just that how much of this series was practical. You look at the sets, right? Look at that they show images of how the troll prison Skellen was put together. And it's a literal walking set that you could get lost in, like some of the cast members did. You look at that puppetry, right? The creature shop is in full use here. And they use actual real world sets based in Wales. Now, I don't know if Wales is going to have the tourist industry boom like New Zealand did after the Lord of the Rings. But maybe it does. Maybe it does. At least, I'm going to try and make an attempt to go to Wales now in my life because I want to see some of these locations. They look really cool. I mean, maybe I'm planning my trip now. Maybe. I like seeing what these sites like the Forest of Dean, where they had the Bone Reaver encampment, the Neath Abbey, where they had that major fight before they go into the Wildwood, where they're fighting against members of the Gales. And another point that they made in this documentary, which is so unique and special to me, was that they made the point to not have any real castles. There are filming in Europe, but it's in Wales. There are no like major famous castles. They wanted to create their own fantasy world. Right? They didn't want it to be based in Europe. They wanted it to be based in Motherworld, the land that Willow is set in. And they were so honest about why they were filming in Wales, right? They're like, you go 1 hour here from Cardiff, you're in mountains. You're going here, you're in the woods. You're over here, you're on the beach, etc. And that's so cool. That's so cool to me. I mean, going back to the creature shop of it all too, and the puppetry, like freaking Kenneth, the I forget exactly what is the species of creature that is, but the one that was under the water towing the almost like a carriage that they were going on before they got to the edge of the world before the immemorial city. That is a full on like creature puppet made for this for this show, and it's very much the head was lifelike, so much so. The head was literally real, folks. I mean, it reminded me so much of being at the Mandalorian experience at Star Wars Celebration. Another plug for why you should go to that convention in person if you can, which was absolutely wild to me. I mean, you could have easily done that in CG, but there was something about having it in real life that I think adds to the performance that you see on screen, where Graydon is able to have this personal connection to this incredible character. And I loved it. It just adds to Graydon's character overall. It makes Kenneth really feel realistic and live to me. Again, brilliant. Now, Amar Chadha Patel, who played Borman in the series, was such a delight for me in this documentary. I loved his heartwarming story about the importance of representation and him being a part of this series overall and what that means for him, for his community, for others of Asian descent. Really great. But I'll tell you what, I did geek out and laugh a lot about the running bit of his clumsiness. It was hilarious. I mean, frankly, the dude can't sit in a chair to save his life. Did you see those end credits? Whew. I don't know. At a certain point, you got to wonder if it's not a bit anymore and he's just actually missing chairs all the time. Great stuff. Also, in terms of representation, it was again great to see the queer representation and how powerful that was. And I want to give congrats again to Aaron Kellerman and Ruby Cruz for bringing both Kit and Jade to life and doing it so well that it makes all of our hearts melt. Doesn't matter who we are. We're able just to see two people loving each other on screen, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. Finally, as we're getting to some of my final my last thoughts here on this documentary, you can just tell that everyone brought 110%, even more, 120, 130, 140% to this series. The acting is just top tier. The writing and world building was stellar. I mean, kudos to just John Kasdan overall for that. And what it did for the expanding of, frankly, for me, in the medium of film and storytelling was just incredible. Like I keep harking on this. I don't want to leave this world. I'm going to be rewatching this series more so than you can probably imagine. It was just a lot of fun, and I'm glad that I've inspired some of my family members to watch this series, and we've just been enjoying it together, having a lot of fun with this world that really was able to set so many rules for itself. Right? We came into the series not knowing a whole lot about Mother World, and we just came in with open hearts, open eyes, few expectations whatsoever, and just let the story come to be, and embracing all that. It was just really well done, perfectly executed. Lot of stuff that was so great here. And lastly, they were saying, like, overall the story of Willow, it's about heart. It's about friendship and coming together, and also magic, right? You can't have a high fantasy series without even a little inkling of magic, which is exactly what Willow is all about. Now, I conclude all this discussion and analysis with you all with a simple question. Where's my season 2? Where's my announcement? I saw those books, those volumes of books go back on the shelf. I saw that there's 3 of them. Is that a key for how many seasons that we're going to get? I don't know. I'm very hopeful, like similar to Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim this past year, that there'll be a Willow panel at Star Wars Celebration in London. I'm very hopeful about that. I mean, theoretically, if they're working on a season 2 currently, they're only in Wales. They can hop on the train and make it to London several hours. It's probably what, an 8 hour train ride. I don't know. It can be done. They can make their way over there. Maybe do an official announcement there on stage for the fans at a big panel. It would be great for them to have their day in the sun too, with maybe some of the actors getting meet and greet experiences. Perhaps they have individual panels about Willow. I mean, I love the idea that Star Wars Celebration isn't necessarily just all about Star Wars. I fully embrace the fact that there are other umbrellas of the Lucasfilm family, such as Indiana Jones and Willow, and hopefully it leaves the door open for other properties in the future that can come to be celebrated at this great convention. Now, of course, Star Wars should always be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. But let's keep our hearts open, our minds, and all of that. Let's have fun with all this. And but if I were betting on this, I would assume that we're probably getting a season 2 announcement at Celebration. But maybe something comes beforehand. Maybe there is an announcement at all. Maybe this is all we get of Willow. But man, that cliffhanger, that'll be tough to not have something followed up to that. I need to see what happens to the Crone. Where's Mad Mardigan and all this? Is that a dark timeline that Graydon sees at the end? I gotta find out. I gotta see this journey and now that we have these characters really fleshed out in a way that they can really be challenged in different ways rather than finding themselves. That's gonna be really exciting. So I hope that we get more, and I hope that you are excited for more at home too. Right? We're gonna have one more episode about Willow, but for now, that's probably where we're going to take a little break from the Willow content as we ramp up for Mandalorian Season 3. Bad Batch Season 2 is still going on. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is coming out in March. And, of course, Celebration in April. So we got a lot coming down the pipeline. And I don't want to spoil anything for you all, but I'm kind of thinking through how we're going to do Celebration at home. So I'm just thinking through some ideas on how we can have a fun fandom experience from home and just chat through stuff and thinking through things. So keep on the lookout for that. I think we can probably put together some fun and exciting things for all of us who aren't able to go to the convention this year, but we can still celebrate all the goodness of Star Wars at home, yada, yada, yada. But with all that, folks, that's really all I had for this week's episode. I thank you for listening to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. Again, be sure to check out all of our social media channels so that if you didn't see our new Indiana Jones inspired podcast artwork, that you can check that out. We're available on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Hive. We're available on all that stuff. So just search for Force Coast Conversations and you'll find us in some way, shape, or form. And we'd love to chat with you and continue the conversation about Willow, Indiana Jones, and of course, our beloved Star Wars. Now, before we head out too, just want to give a reminder again, check out our TeePublic store if you want to see or get, as well as see, but you can also purchase our new Indiana Jones inspired podcast artwork on a t-shirt, on a hoodie, again, a baby onesie. If you got a newborn at home, all that is available there. So just check that out. And if you feel so inclined, we'd love it if you'd support the show. I know people are going to Celebration in London in a few weeks. So now's the time to get your orders in if you want to have your shirts by the time that Celebration comes out, or by the time you're packing for Celebration, so that, yeah, if you can, go ahead and support Force Ghost Conversations out across the sea, across the Atlantic. That'd be really cool. And of course, we'll showcase any imagery that is up on social media that we can find to say thank you and see how cool it is that our fans are out and about in the world. So with that, folks, that is all that I had for this week. We'll be back on Wednesday, of course, discussing episode 5 of The Bad Batch Entombed. That is a really fun episode, and I can't wait to talk about it with Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations on our next pod. But until then, folks, may the Force be with you. Take care. Praise the bones.